Just trying not to drop this full glass of beer. So today the topic that we're going to talk about is beers to try if you don't like beer, or if you think that you don't like beer. If you've heard me say that, or anyone else say that, and you're a person who doesn't like beer, you're probably rolling your eyes really hard, being like, I don't like beer. I know I don't like beer. Okay, bear with me. The thing is, beer can taste so many different ways, and I really truly mean so many different ways, that if you haven't found even one beer that you kind of like, there's hope for you yet. We may be able to find it for you. So what I want to give you today is tips on beers to seek out and try if you are not a beer drinker. So what I'm going to do is go over a few different styles that you should seek out. I'm going to try and stay away from recommending any specific beers or brands, because it can be kind of hard to find them. So I don't want to just suggest things that might be really hard or impossible for you to find depending on where you are. So I'm going to keep it kind of general and stick to talking about styles in hopes that you can look out for these by whatever your local breweries may be. So the first style, or general style, that I want to talk about is sours. I'm a big fan of them. Sours are the kind of beer that got me into beer, which I think goes to show how good of a bridge they can be from other kinds of drinks into beer. And then once you're into beer, maybe into other kinds of beer that you wouldn't previously have had a taste for. There are all different sub-styles of sours. There are gozas, which are really acidic and salty even. Berliner Weisses, which are kind of medium tart. Lambics and a few other things that we will and won't get into. One thing that most sours have in common is that they tend to be very light-bodied. So if the thing, or one of the things that you don't really like about beer is how heavy it is, how it can make you feel really bloated right away, as if you've eaten a big meal, even if you haven't. If it feels full and heavy in your mouth and you don't like the sensation of that. A lot of different styles of sours, Berliners and Gozas, tend to be pretty light in body, so it's much more like drinking any other beverage, like a soda or something else that's carbonated, has a little bit of body to it, but won't keep you feeling super full, and doesn't feel like you're drinking some, like, you know, a syrup or something really heavy going down. Another reason to look into sours, if you're not really a beer drinker, is that a lot of sours are being fruited by brewers today. A lot of breweries like to experiment with adding fruit and other weird, sweet, creative kinds of ingredients to their beers because it tends to go well with that sour flavor. So if something that's like blueberry sour candy appeals to you, even if beer itself might not, a blueberry sour candy-esque beer might be your thing. Fruited sours are everywhere now. Take a look and see what you can find in the store or at your local breweries if you're able to visit, but fruited sours are pretty common nowadays and can be a really good intro kind of beer, or a nice step into beer for someone who doesn't usually go for beers. You'll find fruited beers of all different styles nowadays. Fruited wheat ales are pretty common. If you're not much of a beer drinker, I don't think that a fruited wheat ale will necessarily be to your palate. Of course, try it, take some of your friends, or, you know, get a taster if you're at a tap room. But the reason that I think sours are such a good transitional beer is because they're light and bodied, whereas wheat ales tend to have a little bit more of that heaviness that you might associate with beer. And sours taste just so far from whatever the midpoint you have in your brain of what beer tastes like. It's just a totally different experience. That said, of course, try anything. You might like it. One particular style of sour that I could see people of any kind of taste liking, as long as you like sweet things, at least a little bit, would be a lambic. I can see lambics being really approachable to people who are not into beer at all, because frankly, they just taste really strongly of fruit. Belgian lambics tend to be really heavily fruited, usually raspberry or maybe another fruit flavor, and I kid you not, they drink like a really fizzy, fruity soda. They tend to be the color of the fruit. If someone poured it for you and you didn't know what it was, beer might not be your first guess. So look out for lambics, look out for fruited Berliners and Gozas and other kinds of sours. Another kind of beer that you might be interested in if you're not much of a beer person, but heaviness is okay with you, that heavy full body that some beers and other kinds of beverages have, would be the world of stouts. So stouts can be generally pretty heavy beers, but they tend to be a little bit on the sweeter side, a little bit malty and roasty. And that's just how they are naturally because of the way that the malt is treated. But because stouts already have these nutty, malty, roasty properties, it's really common for brewers to then add something in to make it pastry inspired. Pastry stout is a whole popular category of stout right now. You will find stouts that are meant to taste like fudge brownie, peanut butter cup, cinnamon roll. I tried a cinnamon roll stout once. People are getting really creative and they tend to be super sweet, super heavy. It's truly like dessert in a glass. The only thing that it doesn't really taste like is normal beer. So if you're not much of a beer person, but you have a sweet tooth, then pastry stouts might be the thing for you. If you don't have too much of a sweet tooth, but you are into coffee stouts and other kinds of beers made with or made to taste like coffee are another option that might be interesting to you. There's a whole other kind of mixed category between beer and wine right now, sometimes called Enha beers. And it's not really a defined category just yet, but it's beers that are somehow crossed with wine or wine crossed with beer in the making process. So it might be beers aged in old wine casks or beers made with wine grapes. If you're a wine drinker, this kind of beer might be interesting to you. And again, this is pretty common to see in sours because sours already work really well with that kind of fruity flavor profile. But if you see a beer advertised as being made with Sauvignon Blanc grapes and you're a white wine drinker, that might be the beer to transition you into beer. Speaking of other drinks that you like, apart from wine barrels, there are a lot of beers now aged in old bourbon casks or other kinds of casks that have been used to age liquor. So if you're a big bourbon person, for instance, a stout that's been finished in a bourbon cask might be really, really to your taste. This is a sour, by the way. Basically, I would just encourage you to try as many different kinds of beer as you can. Ask to take sips of your friend's beer. Ask bartenders if you can try a taste of something before ordering a full glass of it. Just try as many different kinds of beers as you can, especially kinds that sound interesting to you. And take mental notes, or better yet, actual notes as to what you like and don't like, so you can start to figure out what sorts of beers might actually be really great for your taste. You never know, maybe the reason that you don't like beer is because you've only ever been really exposed to one style or even just one brand, and stepping outside of that even just a little bit might open you up to all new tastes that you could really like. Just remember that beer can taste so many different ways. It can be super bitter, super sweet, light, heavy, even sour, so there's bound to be something that you'll like out there. Honestly, even New England IPAs can sometimes be really, really similar to orange juice, like citrusy in taste and very thick and hazy. So if you're into orange juice or citrus, even a New England IPA with nothing else added, just grain and hops and water, might actually be really interesting and tasty to you. So look for fun fruited sours, look for silly sugary pastry stouts, try as many kinds of beer as you can. There's gotta be something for you out there, assuming you're not allergic to wheat or hops, which some people are, and that sucks. But assuming you're not allergic, there's got to be something out there for you, and I would love to help you find it. Keep an eye out for fruited sours and pastry stouts and some of the other different styles that I've mentioned, and if you try them and you like them and they start to change your mind about beer, let me know. If you already have a favorite beer that doesn't exactly taste like beer, let me know that too. I hope this has been a little bit helpful or interesting to some of you. If there's ever anything that you'd like me to go over when it comes to beer for newbies, let me know. Always looking for suggestions. Be sure to check out some of the other videos on my channel about different styles of beer and super 101 beer questions you may have. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're all well.